Hello, all, and welcome. We're here for episode 7 of Red, White, and Bi.
This is Ash.
And I'm Hannah.
Hi.
And we're recording. Today is our 7th episode. It's Saturday, June 14th. So, Ash, happy Flag Day to you.
You know how crazy I am about the flag.
She loves flags, guys. Also, today is the 79th birthday for our President Donald Trump. And it's the 250th birthday for the United States Army.
And really, I gotta say, for a while, I really just didn't understand the flag at all. But now I like to rock my Betsy Ross flag because I feel like that was when we had the most promise as a nation. So we went on a little hike today, and I was wearing my Betsy Ross.
Oh, you were? Yeah, you have a little hat with the Betsy Ross flag on it. Now, why do you like it better than the current one?
I feel like the current one, although it represents America, it also represents, all of our failures along the way, all of the kind of manifest destiny stuff that even taking Hawaii, that maybe we could have just left it alone.
Or
So
Hawaii.
the 13 colonies, that was people came together. That was a decision where we all revolted together. And I feel like that was when you had the most unity and the most promise as a country. And that was the real promise of America was back in the good old days.
See, when I asked you, I expected your answer to be like, you liked that the stars were in a circle or something. Right. I did not expect the depth of the answer you gave me. So bravo there.
So Hannah, what are you drinking today?
Funny you should ask, Ashley. My wife picked up some really cool cherry, I think it's a sour cherry flavored bourbon. So I'm only recently getting into whiskey and getting my feet wet in the whiskey river, and it's pretty good. So I have it was really strongly flavored. So I had to, don't hate me out there, audience, but I had to tamper mine down a little bit. So there is some lime seltzer, lime juice, and I think I put some Cointreau in there too. So it's pretty good. It's very sippable.
Nice. I am drinking it with a little bit of Sunkissed, and it's Evan Williams, if you're curious to try it.
Yeah, good stuff. Very strongly flavored. I don't think you should drink it neat. Ash tried that to start, and it's wild.
It's a lot, but I didn't mind it, but it's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Overly so, maybe. So let's get into some topics for today.
Okay, well, if you're listening to this, you know the hullabaloo around Trump's birthday and the 250th Army anniversary that was going on today. No matter which side of the aisle you may lean toward, you have all the Trump and Army stuff on the one side, and then strangely on the left side, there was this big push to distract from honoring the Army, which I guess I just don't really understand whether or not you're pro-war. People sign up to defend our country, and I feel like that's something we should be able to get together behind, but I realize not everyone agrees. So there was this big hullabaloo protest that was planned nationwide, all these different cities organized. And the name of the protest or the movement or whatever you want to call it was No Kings. And I know we've talked about this before, but on my drive to and from work, there are some overpasses over the freeway. And I did see them yesterday on my way home with their No King signs and senior citizens sitting in lawn chairs waving at the oncoming traffic at the freeway. And, it didn't, I don't think the message No Kings really resonates with me. There are no kings. That's literally the basis of what this country is. We refused a king, and that's why we're all here. And if we had a king, I don't think you would be having no king protests. So
I will say, though, that someone on Facebook you had mentioned made a good point that our real No King's Day is July 4th.
Fucking A right it is.
I will also say, as a conservative, that I really hate executive orders. And I think the mere fact that the executive branch can do things via executive fiat bothers me. Trump today said that it's really hard for him to get things done, so he doesn't feel like we have kings. But the fact that he or any other president can just sign something into law, even if it's about to be overturned. If there's a temporary unconstitutional action, that bothers me. So in that way, I would say, it's a fair criticism, but it does seem like the people organizing the protest itself, even the media reporting on it, didn't really give many details as to what the protest was about.
I was about to say, I think that's the most coherent explanation for the protest that I've heard. And it's coming from Ash, who is, if anything, on the right, but like associated with neither side. Yeah, to me, it was really hard to find that message in anything they were saying. So I guess tens of thousands of people were in different cities across the nation were organizing today. The focus was mainly around Philadelphia. And according to the information I saw online, the like thesis statement or the mission statement or whatever you want to call it for this protest was that no individual is above the law. And to me, I like Ash's answer better. Like that just totally misses the point. No individual is above the law is a great message if you're protesting every president that has ever presidented ever. Like we have the Biden stuff with, like we talked about last week. Was it last week maybe or 2 weeks ago? Like drugs in the White House.
Yeah.
We have the Clinton thing with like perjury. We have examples of this in Republicans as well.
Even like, although I'm a fan of Reagan, some people might have argued that maybe he did something illegal with Iran-Contra. But really the best example for Republicans would be Nixon, because with the burglary at Watergate, that was something that just didn't need to happen, and if he just resigned and then was pardoned by Gerald Ford.
Yeah, and I really do think this is a presidential issue and not a partisan issue. Because what happens, especially in the last, 4 or 5 administrations, one of the first things that happens from any president newly elected is this sweeping executive order pardoning literally anyone and everybody that they're buddies with or related to. No individual is above the law, I agree with. And I think that should be blanket applied to anybody in an elected office, but that's just not the case. So I'm not identifying why this is a Trump problem, but certainly plenty of people out there disagree with me.
And I would just add that, you make a really solid point that is sort of the basis of our podcast. We want people on both sides of the aisle to be held to the same standard. And I think if people on the left could really take a closer look at government as a whole instead of just really scrutinizing things when someone they oppose is in office, they would see that these people, left and right, get away with murder compared to what everyday average Joes get away with.
Yep.
And if you could just apply that to everybody, you would see that these people are elite, they are dirty, and maybe you'd hate the government, like full stop. Maybe you'd have a little bit more scrutiny for everybody, and perhaps just sort of like, having that antenna just go a little bit a hair to the right would serve you in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand why people don't hate the government, because the government hates you. Hard stop. Yeah. So I guess these protests were mostly peaceful. I found a hilarious quote, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but going on and on about how like nonviolence was emphasized and they're mostly peaceful. Like it went off without incident in major cities like New York and Philly. However, tear gas was deployed in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia. So I think that's a pretty glaring exception to the nonviolence and aggression. I don't know what happened there to incite that. Maybe it was justified, maybe it wasn't. I just thought it was a funny, like, everything was fine until it fucking wasn't.
Well, and it kind of begs the question, what did happen? Because is it another one of those situations where the CNN cameras just weren't pointed that way, coincidentally, and it was a mostly peaceful protest?
Yeah, like, I'm fully open to either it was a justified move and, like, the protest was out of control and, like, tear gas was required to control the situation, or that, you have these, like, power-hungry boner police, like, just tear gassing everybody. I don't know which happened. I would believe either one, but I did think it was a funny way that the information I found online put it.
I like the term boner police because it reminds me of Linda Richman. Like the boner police, do they police your boner or do they have a boner because they're the police?
I think they have a boner for authority is what I was going for, and I don't think I said it quite right. But
I like it though because it could go either way.
You're
Like
right.
I have such a boner for protest that tear gas is required to rein me in.
Either way, boners were raging as the tear gas blew.
Ooh.
It's almost poetic. There was, however, one major exception to the protests that were going on today. One state did take a step down and decided not to participate. This was Minnesota. If you guys have heard about the shooting that happened there, very sad to hear that the former Speaker of the Minnesota House, Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark were shot and killed today. And also today, by the same suspect, we had Senator John Hoffman of Minnesota and his wife Yvette were shot and wounded. I've heard, I think, an update from Ash. You said that they're out of surgery, they're stabilized, and they're doing okay, the Hoffmans?
They're expected to recover, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we're happy for them. Very sad for Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark and their family, and our hearts go out to them today. So some more information on the shooting. The suspect is 57-year-old Vance Bolter. A little background on this guy. It turns out through some digging, we find out that he was appointed to Governor Tim Walz's Workforce Development Board. He was serving on that board from 2019 to 2023. He was also on a similar board under a Democratic governor previously, Mark Dayton. This guy was listed, if you go to like his LinkedIn or whatever, he's listed as the head of security patrols at Praytonian Guard Security Services. I hope I'm saying that right, Praytonian. But his wife is actually listed as the CEO of this company. So I don't know if this is like a two-person org or like what's going on here, but he has some kind of like security specialty role there. I think I read online that it was listed that he did like security detail, sort of like a merchant marine or something like that, did private security overseas in all these Middle Eastern and Northern African type countries. The really sick and sad thing is that he was impersonating a law officer when he performed these shootings. His car, I guess, was parked in the driveway with like flashers and lights on. He was like dressed in officer clothes. So he really took advantage of his background and his job to fool these people and somehow gain their trust. And I'm sorry, I don't think there's anything more incel-y or scary than a security guard who didn't get on the police force.
Ted Bundy is an example.
Was he a
He was a security guard, a night watchman.
Fuck.
Yeah. And really, like, to your point, the idea that someone would both, dress as a police officer, have a car that helped him to impersonate a police officer, knock on their door and shoot them.
Lure them out.
Yeah, it's just really...
It's so, like, premeditated and disgusting and cowardly.
And manipulative.
Yeah.
Really. It's just
The theatrics are just disgusting.
And, like, whatever your beliefs, you should have respect for the fact that people are elected. They're doing the job that their constituents ask them to do, and whether you agree with them or not, you can hate them, but they have a place, and to act violently toward elected officials is just
There is a system and a procedure to voice your dissent. And you have tools to fire this person from their job if you don't like the way they're doing it. You pay them. You're their employer. So just whip a gun out is so cowardly and weak and low. I guess when they caught him, he had a list of other intended targets, and they were all Democratic lawmakers. I'm not sure how long this list was or what the names were on there. I don't think they've been released yet. I'm sure the people who are on that list have been informed. His car was also full of flyers advertising the No Kings rally. So I don't know, maybe he was taking advantage of all the press coverage between the 250th Army anniversary and Trump's birthday and Flag Day and this protest. Maybe he was hoping to have a lot of distractions. Maybe he was affiliated with the No Kings protest movement, whatever. That's not really clear now. We don't have all the information. This just happened.
And it makes you wonder too if, I don't think we'll ever learn what was actually in the manifesto, because typically things like this aren't necessarily released. However, to Hannah's point, you hope that anybody on that list is already aware of it, and because there's a manhunt ongoing, that they're protected and safe. And then also, you don't know necessarily if he was hoping that these people would attend and not knowing if they would or not, he just went to their door, or what was going
I
on
just
there.
thought too, like I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of police were deployed in peacekeeping for this type of activity. Um, Maybe there was just like a lack of like regular beat cops that particular afternoon or morning.
Yeah, and I think it would be easy enough to say that you were actually going to be peacekeeping. You have flyers for the event, and you're kind of on their side, and there's a credible threat, and then you take advantage of that. So
That's really dark. I hadn't thought of that either.
leave it to me.
Yeah. Ash's mind works in mysterious and dark
I'm
ways.
sorry.
So Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, has stated that the shootings appear to be politically motivated. We don't have a lot of clear motive. And of course, that leads to a lot of speculation. One of the more notable things, a theory that's being tossed around right now, is that Melissa Hortman, the one who was the previous Speaker of the Minnesota House and is passed away at this point, recently voted against her party lines to she voted in favor of a bill that would stop illegal immigrants from accessing the Minnesota state public health insurance program. So she was outside of lockstep of her party. Um, we can't find anything to confirm this, but I think I read somewhere that it's possible that the other victim,
Hoffman.
Hoffman, actually voted in favor of it. So some people we're hearing are saying that because she didn't vote in lockstep, maybe this was like Democrats turning on Democrats, like, hey, you didn't stick with us, so we're going to take you out. We know that this guy has a Democratic history. However, if it is true, and we're not sure, we can't confirm that Hoffman voted in favor of it, that wouldn't make any sense.
And it does make you wonder too, is there anything that all the people on the list have in common? Any vote that this guy disagreed with or that didn't go along with party lines that, would tie them to each other? Or just like many people might have to be to commit such an act of violence, is he just batshit?
Cuckoo crazy.
Yeah, because it's possible too.
Yeah, and any one of if that theory is true, it could still be true, and he's just that crazy. And like, who knows? Like, we shouldn't understand these people. But obviously, the key to seeing any kind of pattern would be in that list, and we don't have access to that. But it is like in keeping with the theme of this podcast, a concerning trend. Like, and I'm not going to say it's. Well, I guess I am later, but at this point, I'm not saying it's a particularly like left or democratic thing that we're seeing this trend in, but possibly both sides. Like, people can't just disagree anymore. Yeah. Like, it used to be that like you could have maybe a heated debate or a proper argument, or it was enough to know that you disagreed with each other. But I think there is like this fire and this violence behind disagreements now, where people feel so justified in their beliefs that they'll take really devastating action to, I don't know, prove their point or like put down somebody who doesn't agree with them.
Yeah, and I will say that I feel like most people, whether they're in the middle or not, would probably agree that the only time that it's acceptable to do violence is if, somebody is coming at you with the intention of doing great bodily harm, that you have a right to defend yourself. Mm-hmm. But these people think of maybe thoughts and words as violence. And in thinking that way, you can justify pretty much anything, which is not fair.
Thinking of thoughts and words as violence, and also like feeling like whether or not it's true, you believe that like a philosophy causes harm to others. And even though you haven't confirmed that and you haven't talked to those other people and you have no real grasp on the situation, you think that that perceived threat toward people you don't know is enough to take action as if it was an actual physical threat to you yourself. Ash found a quote actually on Facebook. This is from Bruce Carroll. He's the founder of Go Proud. It's a gay Republican association. He posted this today, right? Earlier
Yes.
today. He says, quote, "The left kills the CEO of United Healthcare, kills 2 Israeli ambassador staffers, attempts twice to assassinate the president, doxes and attempts to murder federal ICE agents and police all week, and now kills a Minnesota state rep and her husband and injures a senator and his wife. The left has become a full-blown domestic terrorist organization."
And I will say, although I know and respect Bruce, that paints a pretty broad brush because, to say the left or the right is kind of unfair because on both sides, there's a lot of differing opinions. I don't think we can go that far. However, there is a weird trend of violence that we don't typically see this much. Just to your point, Hannah, like usually people do not have such reactive behavior toward people who disagree with them. And now we see people who think that their actions are justified no matter what they seem to do.
Yeah, to me, that's absolutely the point. A little bit less, the left has a problem with it, like this quote said, and a little bit more like, I think people are having a problem with it. I don't know if it was like COVID, like kind of like dissociating people from reality a little bit, making them like cooped up and angry. Like we don't know how to relate to each other or talk to each other. Maybe it's social media. I don't pretend to know the origin of it, but I think we're seeing an escalation of like, it's not enough to be offended anymore.
Yeah, and really, when you get the way that we are now in politics, where the rhetoric is so extreme, I feel like we see politicians and hear politicians doing this. And then we all, I think, had people in our own lives that were equating visiting your grandmother or someone you cared about in a nursing home to murder.
Yeah.
It's a bridge too far.
Yeah, I feel like we're teetering on the edge of sanity in a lot of ways. So again, we just want to say a very heartfelt grief and sorrow to the family of Melissa and Mark Hortman, and also to Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Hearts go out to you guys. I wish a speedy recovery for the Hoffmans, and yeah.
Moving on to our next topic. Hannah, I have to ask because it's possible this is a no for you, and that's okay. Do you remember an episode of The Simpsons where I'm Just a Bill was parodied?
No, I was not allowed to watch The Simpsons because of my fundamentalist Christian upbringing. And there's a lot of stuff like that that I just never went back to watch. But why don't you tell me about it?
So, of course, you probably know, maybe you had to watch it in school, that I'm Just a Bill is musical. And so there's a cartoon making fun of it on The Simpsons where the Bill is explaining what he is to a child, and then he'll explain how bills get passed into law. So he says, there are lots of flag burners who have too much freedom. I want to make it legal for policemen to beat them. And I got to say, with all this stuff about Trump this week, wanting to ban flag burning, which is obviously goes against the First Amendment, freedom of expression. It was already ruled upon by the U.S. Supreme Court. It just, it brought me back to that. And I don't get it. I get patriotism, love my country, hate my government, but love my country. Burning flags is something I wish people wouldn't do. However, you still have a right to do it. It's your property when you buy a flag.
Oh, of course. And it's like, I don't want to get religious about it. Like,
yeah,
it's a flag. It's a piece of fabric at the end of the day.
Exactly.
That probably a Chinese kid sewed up.
Yeah. Or in Mexico, you have no idea.
Yeah.
It could come from anywhere. But all that said, I think even, I could see somebody who was really religious having a problem with people pledging allegiance to it and stuff like that, So there's a line, a flag shouldn't be like a federal building. if you set it on fire when you paid for it at Walmart or something, you should be allowed to burn it. What if you hated your T-shirt? What if you got a T-shirt with like a wrestler or something, and then you learned he was like a bad dude or a rapist, and you wanted to burn it?
I would throw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
I don't think I would burn anything because I think that's a little like wild, but it's weird, like going back half a second, like the Simpsons predict the future. Didn't they predict that Donald Trump would be the president one day?
I'm not 100%.
I feel like they like did like I feel like I've heard that they did like some kind of parody of the future. Like, wouldn't it be ridiculous? Donald Trump is the president in 2062.
I mean, it's entirely possible, and
someone fact check me.
I will say the one part of the musical that they get wrong because Ted Kennedy has passed away. The rest of the little song after "I Want to Make It Legal for Policemen to Beat 'Em," and I'll make Ted Kennedy pay. If he fights back, I'll say that he's gay. So it's a very like right-wing authoritarian kind of a bill. And the implication is that, like, isn't that bill unconstitutional? And it's like, yeah, but if we get rid of the Constitution, amend it, we can make all kinds of crazy laws.
So it makes you wonder, like, okay, like, let's say he's going to put his money where his mouth is, and he proposes a bill that criminalizes flag burning. I mean, the Supreme Court would never uphold that, right?
Yeah, and essentially they've already ruled on it that it falls under freedom of expression. So basically, you're just making a gesture that
he's pandering. Okay, so Trump derangement syndrome cuts two ways, right? Like, there's the people who hate everything he does and think he's like the Antichrist, and then you have people who love everything he does and thinks he's always constantly playing 4D chess. I feel like he's appealing to the 4D chess people, like they're locked in, right? Yeah. Like, why are you trying to impress them? You have them.
Exactly. He could say or do anything.
It's like buying flowers for your stalker. They don't need encouragement.
And it's funny because we were talking about how, like, we kind of wish people on the left would hate the government all the time or at least scrutinize it. Mm-hmm. And it speaks to some hypocrisy. I won't even call people who like Trump on the right because I don't believe they are. But people who call themselves Republicans who are exhibiting some hypocrisy, is that there was a video this week after all of this stuff about flag burning that went viral where a guy at a NASCAR event sees a protester hanging off, a fence at this NASCAR event.
Was he protesting NASCAR?
He wasn't protesting so much as he climbed the fence and he was holding a Palestinian flag.
At NASCAR.
At NASCAR.
Brilliant move, friend.
So this, as far as I can tell, white, kind of doughy ginger kid who was pissed off that he was doing it, climbs the other side of the fence.
Oh, honey.
And pulls down the Palestinian flag that this kid is trying to hang up.
Through the fence? Or like over
the top. And people are cheering this on. And at the same time as, I don't necessarily agree with what this kid with the Palestinian flag is doing, I would personally say that's his property. You don't really get a right to pull it down and steal it from him.
It is theft.
So if I were to hold up an American flag and burn it at this NASCAR event, maybe I'm endangering people with the burning of it, but as long as I'm not, that was my property. Mm-hmm. If this guy pulls down this Palestinian flag that doesn't belong to him and sets it on fire, I'd say he's in the wrong.
I see your point. While I question this kid's motives and his choice of venue for a protest about Palestine, don't go to fucking NASCAR to do it.
Yeah.
I doubt anyone there even really understands what Palestine is or isn't. But B, I take your point. And also, it goes back to what we said earlier about it's not okay to just disagree anymore.
Yeah.
Like, okay, some kid is climbing a fence at the totally inappropriate venue and, like, having an issue and, like, crying out about an issue at a place where nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah.
It should be enough to just ignore him because he made terrible, stupid choices. He has no audience there. You don't have to do anything back to him. But here we are disagreeing takes action, and now you're stealing and vandalizing and whatever.
It comes down to having enough intellectual consistency to know what's right and wrong. And if somebody pisses you off, you don't have to act out in a physical way. Like, I wouldn't like somebody standing up there burning an American flag, but I'm not going to hit them over it. You know, that was their property. I wish they wouldn't do it. It's disrespectful to me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I assault a person for burning their own property,
now you've stepped a toe over the line,
Exactly.
outside of your rights.
Exactly. And the same is true as if I pull down a Palestinian flag that doesn't belong to me, or do something to the flag itself or the person that
Mm-hmm.
brought it. It's just, you know, I would say that's not right.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's pretty fair.
Okay. Kind of in keeping with this, I'm really patriotic and, you know, like playing to your base stuff. Trump also had said publicly, protesting the military parade will be met with really big force, which sounds like Trump. Anyway, really big, beautiful force.
Talking like a 4-year-old.
So, having said that, and knowing that Trump said that, a reporter at the daily press conference spoke to Press Secretary Karolineleavitt, and she asked the question, is Trump talking about peaceful protesters of the military parade being met with really big force? And she said, of course not. The president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question. And it's
You know what? It is a stupid question. I might get lost in my own metaphor here, but it's like stupid questions get stupid answers. So the president said a stupid thing.
Yeah.
So it begets stupid questions.
Yeah. It was fair to me of that reporter to want to clarify. Because there is a distinction between throwing a brick at an officer and holding up a sign that says no kings.
Yeah, he basically said, like, if you try to crash my party, I'm going to strong arm you out of it.
Yeah.
He didn't clarify like terms or protest, like peacefulness or aggression. He just said like there would be, what did you say, very big it would be met with a very big force.
Yeah, and I will say too, again, as a conservative and trying to be intellectually consistent, if Biden had spent 25 to 45 million dollars, which is the estimation of the cost of this parade,
Jesus Christ.
there would be conservatives.
What do you spend that much money on for a goddamn parade?
I have no idea.
He throw me a parade?
Well,
and can I just have the money instead?
And here's my thought. I hate parades. I think they're stupid. And
Yeah,
I've never liked them.
Parades are a bad
idea.
idea.
And I think they're boring and useless and they stop traffic. Just like...
And they're always 1,000 degrees.
Yeah. And honestly, that's how I feel about most protests. They're boring and they're stupid and they accomplish nothing and they stop traffic and it's hot outside. But that's costly to taxpayers.
Mm-hmm.
And if Biden had done that, conservatives would have been up in arms.
Yeah.
Even though they're patriotic, it's like, how could you spend that much money? Trump does it and it's fine. No, that's a big problem. You're supposed to be looking for waste and abuse, not causing more of it. It's like, wait a minute, where's this money being laundered?
Bring back Elon.
Yes, bring back Elon indeed.
I get that 250 years is a big anniversary for the Army, and I feel like, you know, tensions are high, economy's shitty, morale is low. So I understand wanting to, you know, like bread and circuses, right? Like wanting to boost morale and give people like a nice distraction and maybe like boost morale a little bit. I cannot believe that price tag though.
Yeah, give me George Washington's teeth.
What?
I'll put it on the front of a bicycle with an American flag on the back. I'll ride around wherever you want me to. I'll do it for free. 250 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is an image. You're putting Washington's teeth on the front of a bike?
Ha-cha-cha-cha.
Yeah, do they clip like as you go? Maybe
Yeah.
like as you're pedaling, you can hook up the gears to it so they chomp with your speed.
I'll wear a powdered wig. I'll give anyone in a red coat the finger.
The boner police are going to be coming for you.
They probably will, because I do have the biggest boner for George Washington.
Oh, wow.
It's true.
Guys,
My lady
where
boner,
are we going with this?
my lady boner for the country is a really big force.
And you're going to meet the parade with your giant lady boner.
Yeah.
Guys, I mean, we can't say she didn't warn us.
You heard it here first. So that said, speaking of things that maybe don't make any kind of sense in government, have you seen all of this back and forth between the president of Mexico and Trump about remittances?
I'm going to play the everyman here. And guys, it's not just playing a role. I am everyman level uninformed. I know that there are protests out west that center around immigration and particularly Mexican migrants in our country. And I know that the Mexican president has had some commentary on it.
Yeah, she effectively asked people to possibly mobilize if this whole issue wasn't dropped. And the issue being, right now, there's no major taxes on money sent home from immigrants, illegal immigrants to this country, back to Mexico.
So to be clear, it could be legal or illegal immigrants sending money, like making money in America and sending it back home to their friends and family.
Exactly. So basically, if we're looking at remittances, what we're seeing is 60+% of USD contributions to the Mexican economy are from people sending US dollars back home. And
So wait, time out. 50% of their 50% of the American contribution to their economy.
60+%.
So that would include it's being compared to like manufacturing in Mexico.
Yeah.
And tourism, like Cancun and cruises and shit like that.
Yeah, and actually, more than tourism, more than agriculture in Mexico, their economy is built on these remittances at 60+%.
60+% of the American contribution to their economy.
Exactly. So, like, when you
That's
consider
incredible that it outpaced manufacturing and tourism.
in tourism
put together.
I would think especially. Like,
I would think manufacturing especially. I mean, all of our, like, we might be the Motor City, but every single car that is American made is produced in Mexico.
Yeah,
or Canada.
And like, to be fair on the agriculture front, a lot of the times when I get produce, I do see like Chile and Argentina more than I see Mexico. So it's possible that we're just not importing as much from there.
Yeah.
But
they do have good coffee though.
You would think that like all of these resorts in Mexico that, are like nice and fancy and like a safe place to go.
Mayan Riviera, Cancun.
Exactly. That they'd be bringing in more money than what people are sending back home. So I think, although I'm really opposed to taxes, this taxation could possibly, encourage citizenship. If you had family members, rather than sending the money back home, if you could make a case for them to come over and either become citizens or get visas or green cards, so that you could take good care of them because it was maybe too costly for you to send stuff home. I could see how, from the perspective of the American government, to bring people here would be, and bring them here legally, would be better because the money is staying in our economy rather than going.
And then you're bringing like that many more minds and talent, and like you're contributing to the fabric of our culture and stuff by bringing people here who want to be here.
Yes, exactly.
Assuming that they do. I mean, I guess there's a lot of questions I have, like how many people who are receiving these remittances back in Mexico wish they could come to America, and would there be a way to like fast track them or whatever? Like, I think it's half the equation. I back up a second. I'm totally with you on that. Surprise, surprise. That I disagree with most taxes. But also I would think, and I realize it's not, but I would think that it would be a unifying thought that our money as a nation, our money should stay in our economy, because when it leaves, it doesn't come back. It's like shooting trash out into space. Like, it's gone from the system. It's a sealed system, and now that's that much less value in it when it leaves. So I would agree, like, that a tax that would encourage that money to stay in the system is appropriate.
If you had completely free trade, no tariffs, some of that money would come back. However, if you were trading with Argentina, which is now becoming like a capitalist country, there might be more money to come back. But my question, I think, for somebody who was living in Mexico and receiving the benefit of money that was coming out of the US economy and back to them, would be if you had to have a choice between staying where you are but not receiving that because maybe it's too heavily taxed, or receiving less of it because of the taxation, or coming over here legally, what would you prefer to do? And I feel like if the idea is to get more money back in our economy, get people coming over here legally, if the answer is that they'd rather come to the United States, that could be really good for the United States. Like, Hannah knows this, but like, I'm really pro legal immigration, and I do think it's helpful to the American economy to import workers, import good people, import, as you put it, like a brilliant mind. Like, there's a lot to be said about bringing in immigrants. Is what our country is founded on.
That's why we're strong. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you could find a way to encourage legal immigration, it's something I think right now with this border crisis, with an immigration crisis, we might be missing. Rather than really, like, this may be seen as a punishment to some, but if you could incentivize coming here legally, or find a different way to do it entirely, I think it could be a real benefit to our economy and to the country.
And at the risk of speaking on something that I don't know that much about, I don't want to speak from a place of total ignorance, so I'll put that disclaimer on there. I would think that if you made the threshold to coming here legally a little lower, like you made it a little easier, you made it a little bit more achievable. I don't know if there's money involved, but if there was, like, a little cheaper, or just like make that ease of entry just a little bit better, I would think that many people would be interested in that. And then you wouldn't have all this money leaking out. Now, while you were talking, Ash, I hope it was okay, I looked up the total. So I realized that USD contributions, 60% of USD contributions to Mexico come from remittances. As a country, like as a total, 3.9% of Mexico's total GDP comes from remittances. So that is somewhat low. However, remittances contribute a significantly larger proportion to some of the poorer states in Mexico. Some states have as high as 15.9% or 14.1% of their GDP coming from United States remittances. So it's strange to me that the Mexican president would take such a hard line on that 3.9% figure. But then when you put it in perspective of some of these poorer states, basically we're supporting the bottom end of their economy with these remittances. So like they would have a lot of poverty on their hands. It would affect some areas really disproportionately, it sounds like.
I do want to clarify something that just speaks to why this tax might incentivize becoming a citizen. Sending the money back, it's always a remittance. However, the remittance tax that is proposed would only apply to non-citizens and temporary migrant workers. So if you are a citizen, you are exempt. So basically, any citizen that wants to give gifts to their family, that's okay. But until you're a citizen, they don't want you to be a non-citizen who maybe isn't paying other taxes. They don't necessarily know your situation, and you're sending money out of our economy and back to other non-citizens. When, if you are a citizen, we've already encouraged your citizenship, even if you've just done it to avoid this tax, or if it's a benefit to bring your family over here. You might even have more like people on visas, other non-citizens, but who are here legally. There's a way to get people in the country legally, if you actually impose this.
Yeah, and I feel like that just strengthens my opinion that I think I would be in favor of this, because if citizens are exempt from it, It's actually, I think, maybe more generous than I might have written it. And it puts the focus on legal pathway instead of just like, you're not allowed to take care of your family back home. That doesn't sound very nice, and I don't think a lot of people would be in favor of that, and for good reason. It puts the focus back on come here legally and do what you please.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, really, if you come here legally and you're not a citizen, this is a reason that if you want to take care of, folks back home, that you have now a reason to just become a citizen and keep things on the up and up, and you can take care of maybe people back home who are too old to go through the process. You can take care of your grandmother or great grandmother or whatever the case may be. But it's kind of anything, I think, that encourages legal citizenship is a good thing, especially if it doesn't affect citizens of the country. If citizens of this country aren't being taxed for a change, holy shit, I'm on board.
Ash wipes her brow. Yeah, I'm glad that we looked up those last couple of crucial facts while we were talking because, yeah, like I said, that really strengthens my opinion in it. I think it's a positive thing, and I'm going to speak again from a place of ignorance because I have not had the immigrant experience. So I want to take a second to acknowledge that I don't know what I don't know. But I would think that the pull of the rights that an American citizen enjoys would be enough to want to pursue it. But if for some reason that wasn't enough, now you have a monetary reason to want it as well. And I think that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all that said, I'd like to give the floor to you, Hannah, again, so that you can tell the audience what our poll question is this week.
Okay, guys, we're going to come full circle here and talk about our first topic. So, in terms of the tragic shootings in Minnesota, Tim Walz has stated that the shootings themselves were politically motivated. Our question to you is, do you think it was internally motivated, i.e., like Democrats taking out their own, maybe for a disagreement within the party or punishment for voting a certain way? Or do you think it was motivated by more Republican values, sort of like as an opposition way, like I don't like who you stand for as a party? Or obviously, C, none of the above. It was just a rogue shooter with no real clear agenda.
All right, that said, thank you for joining us for a seventh episode. We're always happy to engage with you guys, so we hope you take our poll. And just remember, when people disagree with you, don't mess with their stuff, don't hurt their person, and especially don't shoot them.
Guys, use your words.
Use your words. Or use your shut down and seethe internally.
It served us in the 80s and 90s. It'll serve you today in the 2020s.
It serves me every day.
Every damn day. Guys, we've been watching the metrics on our show, and like we're new at this and we're finding our feet still, and it's a little bit of a struggle, but I think we're improving, and we see the statistics on our listening on the different platforms that we post on slowly creeping up. So if you're partially responsible for that, shout out to you. We're so grateful. Thanks for listening to two bi girls shoot the shit in our kitchen. We're really grateful for this experience, and we're grateful for you.
Yes, thank you so much. We love you.
Bye. Bye.